What's up, guys? Theo here, doing a prediction for Dan Ige versus Andre Fili. Right now, Dan Ige is a minus 180 favorite, and the comeback on Andre Fili is plus 140 on DraftKings. Guys, I like Dan Ige here. I don't have too many things to really say about this fight because I feel like it's a relatively simple matchup. Not simple in that I think Dan Ige is going to win very easily, but simple in that we kind of know what to expect from these guys. We know how this fight is going to pretty much play out. These are two long-standing UFC guys that have fought a lot of people. They've both fought the who's who in the division. And I kind of just prefer Dan Ige's strength of schedule over Andre Fili's. I always feel like Andre Fili has just been a little bit below Dan Ige's level in terms of competition beaten. They do have some opponents in common, like Bryce Mitchell, that they both did lose to. But Dan Ige has fought higher level guys like Mosar, and he's only really losing to the best of the best in the UFC. He's losing to like Calvin Kattar, Mitchell, Mosar. So I like his losses a little bit more than I like Fili's losses, even though Fili has also beat some pretty good competition. I just think that Dan Ige has basically shown that he's capable of beating these dudes that are just a slightly lower level, but he can't really get past that kind of like really strong top 10 like contender thing. So I favor Dan Ige in terms of like their experience. Andre Fili is going to be a little bit taller and longer, and he's actually older, which is surprising. You would think Dan Ige would be older. I think of Dan Ige as like an older fighter, and I think of Andre Fili as a young guy, but Andre Fili is actually 1 year older than Dan Ige. So I don't think the height, weight, age thing is going to factor in too much here. I think both these guys are really good strikers. They're both really game. But I prefer Danny Ige's tight, controlled fundamentals. I think he just has slightly better boxing, slightly better movement. Andre probably has a little bit more power, actually, in my opinion, which might surprise some people. But I think Andre delivers power more, kind of like at a lot higher volume than Ige does, whereas if Ige hits you, you're going to go down. He's got a lot of power, but Fili just seems to overwhelm people with his power sometimes in a way that you don't really see from Ige. Ige's a bit more of a like high fight IQ when he's actually in the ring. And yeah, I just kind of prefer him here. It could end up being a bit of a bad stylistic matchup for Dan Ige, but I think at this point in his career, Ige has fought so many dudes and fought against so many high-level styles. I just don't think that Andre Fili is going to be able to present anything to him that he hasn't seen before. Yes, he's a little bit taller and longer, and yes, he stays back, and Dan Ige kind of needs to get in close to you. But there's no way that Ige, unless he just does not show up at all, is just going to sit back and let Andre Fili tee off on him from a distance like that without returning something. One thing about Fili is that he kind of leaves his chin pretty high in the air. He likes to fight with his hands low, and he also likes to switch stances a lot. You know, a lot of times in fights, he'll come out southpaw and he'll switch to orthodox, or he'll come out orthodox and he'll switch southpaw. And the thing is Dan Ige matches up really well against southpaws. So, you know, if Andre Fili is kind of losing track of where he's at, switching in and out of stances, I think that could be bad, and I think Ige could take advantage of that. And I just think Ige's tighter boxing is going to help him get a win here, because I don't think Fili is going to knock Dan Ige out. I think Dan Ige's a bit too tough for that. He's got a great chin. And I think that Ige can probably do more damage here, and I don't think that he's going to get submitted by Andre Fili. Andre Fili is known to submit people, but Ige managed to avoid getting submitted by some very talented grapplers like Mosar and Bryce Mitchell. Even though Mosar doesn't submit a lot of people, Bryce Mitchell certainly will. And he hasn't been submitted by any of those guys. So I don't see the submissions being a threat here. Not that I even see this really going to the ground, because neither of them are really guys that take people down a lot. They like to strike. I think these guys are going to stand in front of each other, and I think they're going to crack for 15 minutes. And I just prefer Dan Ige's boxing to Andre Fili's more kind of kind of like loose MMA striking. So I think this fight is lined correctly. Not saying I don't think Fili could win this. I just don't think he will. I think Ige will get a win here. So yeah, keep it locked in, guys. Like I said, not too deep of read on this one, but we will have some better reads on some other fights coming up later this week.